Hey everybody, it's Rich and Jimmy here with this week's fishing report. So let's get into it.
Yep.
We'll start up north, we'll work our way south. Trolling for striped bass has definitely been one of the hotter tickets. Trolling small tandems, you can try some small spoons and whatnot as well. In the fall we like pulling some surgical tubing, some tubes, some spoons, but tandems have definitely been producing well. A lot of decent sized fish, definitely in the keeper range, a few smaller fish in there. Naming the game is kind of covering some ground. It sounds like they're pretty spread out. They are kind of schooled up in schools once you find them, but they're kind of all over the place. Like you were saying, they're kind of getting close to that fall pattern.
Yeah, they're bunching up the bait, but they're still moving around a lot. They're pushing the bait around the shores a lot. They're not really in those tight spots like they will be later on the fall. So you can still check those main points, all those flats and all that. They're pushing up onto there, but it's been a little bit weird. They're still not in the full effect onto the flats yet.
And definitely have some jigging stuff ready.
Yep.
You know, when you're trolling around and you do come across them, you find some breaking fish, have some poppers, have some soft plastics on jig heads, paddle tails, just have all that kind of stuff at the ready.
Yeah. We got a couple options. If you're seeing fish down below and you want to try and reach down to them, we got just typical GIs with a scented jerk shad. You can try and upsize your baits a little bit now too. As we push more into the fall, that bigger bait's going to start moving into the river. So in maybe a couple weeks, you can start trying the 7-inch and the big old BKDs and stuff like that. Try and get some of those bigger fish out. But it might take a little bit for that bigger bait to still kind of push into the rivers and those fish to start feeding on them. Other options we have, if you're finding breaking fish out in the rivers or if you're chasing them out in the bay, you can throw topwaters, any type of hoagie popper or any of these hoagie epoxy jigs if you're burning them real quick on the surface. We're still finding that there's some bluefish and little bluefish mixed in with some stripers. Might be able to still get a mackerel here, but we haven't really heard too much about that. But there are still breaking fish if you can find them. It's just a little bit of a hunting game for them.
Yeah, and like Jimmy said, definitely want to have some poppers, have some stuff that's kind of noisy, makes a lot of splashing on the surface, some walk the dog style like your Zara Spooks, or we've got the Lonely Angler one there, the Badunkadunk, nice little twitch bait. These twitch baits are a lot of fun to fish. They don't make as much splashing on the surface. They kind of ride a little subsurface, which is nice when you get those breaking fish. It's great to see that explosion on the surface, but sometimes it's not the best way to connect with the fish or getting that lure down a little bit. I know you said one of our local employees here had some luck on that Berkeley popper, so definitely want to give some of that stuff a try. Let's switch gears a little bit before we head south. You've been doing some freshwater fishing. So how's freshwater fishing been?
Freshwater's been pretty good. Same thing how the striper are kind of getting on the fall pattern. The largemouth are kind of doing the same thing. They're kind of bunching that bait up, but they're not on the bank like they were in the summer. So you want to cast your lures maybe 15, 20 yards off of the bank because they're going to be just chasing that bait all around the pond, lake, river. They're very, very active right now. So they're on the move. So we're using reaction style moving baits, stuff that's going to cover a lot of water and also kind of draw a strike if you get into the school of fish. Something like a square bill or a deep diving crankbait that you're dragging on the bottom. I would switch off of the soft plastics and start going to more hard baits and jerk baits and stuff like that for them.
Very cool. That sounds exciting.
Yeah, very, very fun.
Yeah, there's nothing like to take on a crankbait with largemouth. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's head back out on the bay. Well, let's start heading south. We've been hearing some reports of cobia and some decent sized redfish too, some larger red drum. So for those, you can do some casting and retrieving as well. If you're throwing to cobia, if you're lucky enough to see some kind of schooling around, you want to throw some heavier baits. We really like these lively colors, these brightly colored soft plastics. He's got the rubber skirts, got a soft plastic twister tail on the end. It's got a lot of action. You can kind of chuck those with a big heavy spinning rod. That's a lot of fun. For the redfish, some scented soft plastic, same kind of thing we're doing with the stripers, but we're going a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, because sometimes these fish will be underneath of some of those breaking fish. You'll find some of those bigger red bulls, or even some larger stripers. I'm hearing a few mutterings about some larger fish here and there. Not quite hear the migratory fish here yet. Surgical tubing, so trolling for cobia has been very productive in the middle of the bay, lower bay. Surgical tubing, spoons, these are all going to be great baits. You can put them either behind a big planer or you can put them behind an inline sinker, get them down to where they need to be. Remember when you're trolling these spoons too, the tubes, don't just run them straight. You want to have a curl to them. We've got a video that you can look up on our website, but in a nutshell, don't just bend them around to get a curve to them. One of the more effective ways that we've found is that you kind of keep the nose of this straight and you want to bend the rear part of this so that you kind of get a little curl on the end here. and then you get that straight nose, and what'll happen is it'll run in a spiral motion with that nose in the front rather than the whole thing kind of flailing around. Gives it a little bit tighter spiral in the tail section where the hook is, so that when that fish comes up, they can actually get the hook in their mouth and they don't have that big thing flying around, especially with these larger ones. So definitely give that tip a try.
Yeah.
So I think that about wraps it up. Perch fishing's been okay. Hasn't been really on fire. It's kind of slowed down a little bit. You said, we were talking before we started, there's been a couple of yellow perch being caught here and there. Yeah, so thanks guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good time out on the water. If you need anything, just give us a call. Good luck out there. Have fun.